For those of you who do not know, who haven't been online in the last 24 hours, Adam Schefter came out with a report on NFL Live the other day, and he's talking about how the Pittsburgh Steelers have no commitment to either one of these quarterbacks and how it's really up for grabs, and the whole Russell Wilson is definitely going to start thing, maybe not as true as we believe that it is currently. And then he goes on to say this, quote, "There's no commitment, obligation, loyalty to any of these guys. They didn't pay very much for either one of them. I even had an executive say if Justin Fields outplayed him, Russell Wilson, during training camp, they could see them moving on from him before the season. They could see Russell Wilson being gone from the Pittsburgh Steelers before week 1 of the NFL season if Justin Fields won the job." There are so many little crevices to dive into when it comes to this, and I think we have to approach all of them because, for one, I think there is one way where, yes, this does come true and the Pittsburgh Steelers do move on from Russell Wilson, and they just move forward with Justin Fields and they figure it out from there. I think that there is one crevice that says, yep, that could happen. I think if we're thinking realistically, it's going to be very hard for Russell Wilson to lose this job. And I stand on the ground of Russell Wilson hasn't done anything to earn this job. And I think it's a little wild that the Pittsburgh Steelers are out here making claims and tossing reports out there that Russell Wilson is the guy and there's no competition. I mean, there's no reason not to have a competition. You paid $1.2 million for Russell Wilson, and I get it. He's a 9-time Pro Bowler, but he hasn't had a winning season since 2020. That's a long time of losing. And in that time frame, Justin Fields has also not won. So you got two guys who are not winning quarterbacks in the NFL currently, who you hope turn into winning quarterbacks, who come from tough situations. And I understand both of those things. And I have a ton of optimism about Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback room right now is unbelievable. And I think what they have done this offseason is just fantastic and raises their bar 100 times what it was 2.5 weeks ago, 100 times. But to sit here and say that Russell Wilson is the guy and there's no competition and this is his team no matter what, is just wild to me. And it brings out everybody saying, oh, he's going to get benched by week 7, week 8. I think you have to avoid that if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that's where competition comes into play, is you don't want to find yourself sitting in a situation where in week 7, week 8, your team's losing to the point where you have to make a quarterback change. You want to go into the season with the best possible option at quarterback, and I'm not 100% sold that that's Russell Wilson. I'm just not. And I think that's where the competition comes in. That's where the NFL executive talking about Russell Wilson moving on from the Pittsburgh Steelers comes in. I think that's when you bring up that conversation. Let's start with this. The only possible way that the Pittsburgh Steelers move on from Russell Wilson is if Russell Wilson stinks, and I mean stinks, during training camp. Doesn't look good. Justin Fields looks incredible. And you know, it's really hard to look bad as a quarterback during training camp. It's really, really hard. Mason Rudolph's done it in the past, and I've been very critical. Chris Oladokun looked really bad when given like 6 snaps in training camp. And even worse when he actually had opportunities in OTAs. I mean, he didn't get a snap until the last day of training camp when he was in Pittsburgh. But during OTAs, he got a couple. He looked real bad during that time. Then Schefter's out here saying this, and my thought is, if it's not going to work out, if Russell Wilson's not your guy, the only way that you move on is if Russell Wilson causes a scene. If Russell Wilson's pounding the door and pulling a Kenny Pickett and saying, this isn't going to work out, you know, I'm the guy. It's ridiculous that I'm the guy. I'm looking for a starting job. But if we're going to be frank, I don't think Russell Wilson has options anywhere else. I think this is Russell Wilson's last opportunity in the NFL to be a starting quarterback. I think that he looks at this and realizes my other option was the New York Giants, and cool, maybe that would have worked out, but they're in on Daniel Jones still. They got a massive contract with Daniel Jones. Maybe I would have got to start the season, but if I didn't ball out, Daniel Jones would have been the guy that replaced me. This is Russell Wilson's last opportunity to be the guy, to be a starter in the NFL. If it doesn't work out in Pittsburgh, he's a backup for the rest of his career, no matter how long that career lasts. So he gets that. And I don't think that he's going to sit around and complain and pull all this drama. I do think that Russell Wilson's way more into social media than the Pittsburgh Steelers probably like him to be. I do think that he's going to voice things in ways that the Pittsburgh Steelers may not want him to voice his opinion in things, but I also think he's a true professional. And I also think talking to him at his press conference, you got the idea that this guy knows how to handle all these situations, that he knows what to say in the right time. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen behind closed doors. And it's not going to get out the way that Kenny Pickett's not wanting to dress Scott out and Kenny Pickett, canceling workouts with wide receivers got out. It's not, all that's not going to happen. You're going to be very professional about the situation. You're going to be like Mitch Trubisky was, or like Mason Rudolph was. Those are veterans. That's the difference between those guys and Kenny Pickett, is that Mitch handled that very well. Mason's handled all the nonsense over the past couple of years very well. I would expect Russ to do the same thing. If he doesn't, you move on. But I think that's such a slim chance that he comes out here and he's, oh man, this is a big issue. I'm getting benched for Justin Fields. I can't believe it. I'm complaining. You got to move on from me. And if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, your quarterback room's not going to look anywhere. If Justin Fields is your guy, you want Russ to be your backup because your third's probably going to be a nobody quarterback. It's probably going to be a rookie out of some school in the 7th round or the 6th round or undrafted or whatever, where like they're just thankful to be here. They're not starting. They're not even a backup. They're not even worthy of the number 2 spot. They're number 3. This is an emergency. You play the scout team type of guy. I think that the Steelers are not going to, no matter what, move on from Russell Wilson. They're going to view it as a mentorship and hope that Russ is all about that. And to be quite frank, like you could go back to Ryan Tannehill saying it about, who was it? Was it Malik Willis who said that he wasn't here to do anything. He was here to compete and he wasn't looking to mentor. You could go back to, Ben and Mason had their differences, and that was, depending on who you asked, is the side of the story that you're going to get. I don't see Russ being that guy. I see Russ being a guy that's here to make sure Justin Fields improves and tries to take on that leadership role. And I don't know if he's going to be any good at it, but I do think that that's his mindset. I don't think he's going to sit around and freak out about it. I just don't. And when it comes to Justin Fields winning the job, I think that that's very capable. I think that that is something that could happen very easily. I don't look at this at all and say this is Russell Wilson and he's going to outprove. Just think about Justin Fields. Really think about this for 2 seconds. Think about Justin Fields in the preseason. Okay, think about Justin Fields going up against second-team guys, guys that make Kenny Pickett look real good in the preseason. Justin Fields is going to be an absolute animal in those games. There is like the excitement around this kid is going to be so high that Russ is he's going to be backed into a corner. That's what's going to happen. He's not going to have any room to mess up because Justin Fields is going to look that good. And Justin Fields is a starter in the NFL. He's not a good starter, but he's got starting experience. This isn't a nobody. This isn't somebody who doesn't have potential. This isn't somebody who doesn't have an opportunity in the NFL. I think Justin Fields 100% has an opportunity to win this. I don't fall for this is Russell Wilson's job, but I also don't fall for the Russell Wilson's going to leave town and the Steelers are going to kick him out, move on. Like, what are you going to cut him? Like, is that what you're going to do? If you get rid of him, you're going to cut him, or are you going to, does Russell Wilson hold any trade value at $1.2 million, even if he stinks? Is that a possibility?
I don't think that that's a possibility. And even if you go back to last year, whenever he got benched, he handled that in stride. So why would it be any different 6 months later that he say, you know what, now that I'm getting benched for Justin Fields, that's a problem. But when I got benched for who did he get benched for? And I don't even know who started. Jarrett
Stidham.
But I got benched for Jarrett Stidham and handled that the right way. But no, Justin Fields, a former top 10 overall pick that's 25 years old and has much more of a higher potential, that's going to bother me a little bit more. Like, I don't see that happening, especially like you mentioned, because this is a guy that has been in a lot of different situations and has handled all those situations very, very well. You saw how media trained he was last week. I don't think that even if he was upset, I don't think that's anything you'd get a whiff of at all.
No, that's what I'm trying to say is I just don't think that Russell Wilson is going to let it be known. I think in his head, he'd be like, yeah, whatever, I'm going to move on after the season and that's it. But I think Mike Tomlin loves this guy. I think Arthur Smith's going to love this guy. I think that the team is going to love this guy and they need some leadership, and Russell Wilson is the leadership that they need because that's what they need. They don't need like a Ben was a different type of leader, and those old school Steelers were different types of leaders. Like Troy Polamalu would walk into the locker room. If there was music playing in the locker room, he would go shut it off. There was no, like, he wouldn't say anything. He'd walk up to the speaker and he'd shut it off. Ben Roethlisberger didn't allow music at practice. That wasn't allowed to happen. Now there's music all the time in practice. That was not allowed to be a thing because these old guys kind of led in a different light. Russell Wilson's more the I'm gonna talk to you like I'm a motivational speaker. Like I'm trying to inspire you to do great things. He's like a better, well-trained, less funny Jameis Winston. And that's cool because Jameis Winston's a captain even when he's not a starter. So I understand that's what you want in your team. I think Russell Wilson's a dude who, you know, I don't look at him as a problem guy. I don't. I think that he's weird, and I think there are weird stories that come with Russell Wilson, but I don't view him as a problem guy, even if he gets benched. And I'm going to say that the chances of Justin Fields winning that job are 50-50. I'm not willing to sit here and say that this is Russell Wilson's job no matter what. I just don't. I don't look at it. I don't look at it at all in that kind of light. And when it comes to the reports of Schefter talking, I just look at, man. Doug Whaley goes on 93.7 The Fan and says some nonsense like once every other week. So I don't know who this NFL executive is, but I know there are some wild ones in the NFL. And to be honest, if I ever had the opportunity to sit around and say, please tell me your thoughts, and they drop something like that, I'd probably say, man, I'm going to keep that to myself because I'm going to try to make you look good. I'm not going to do that to you. I'm not going to hurt your reputation like that. It's just not going to happen.